Dean's dream was he was basically going to be dreaming an 80s horror movie, that he was going to wake up and the film stock was going to kind of be 80s, and the original version, like this girl in leg warmers was going to run up and be like, oh my God, and then help me, and then, you know, Jason was going to come out and he was going to have the machete and the hockey mask and the whole thing. And we found out, I think about 3 days before shooting, that the movie studio that shall remain nameless thought they had the rights to the character, and it turns out they didn't. And they called and they said, sorry, we don't have the rights after all. And we said, we're 3 days away from shooting. Like, we've made our Jason. Like, it's perfect. We made this perfect facsimile. I made everyone watch Friday the 13th Part 4. And, you know, and they're like, sorry. And they kind of shrug. And we're like, we don't even know what to do. And then we had this notion that if, you know, Sam's dream, and illogical, I don't think he, like, really loves Bella or anything, but I think if Sam's dream is just a sex dream about Bella, and that Sam underneath his, like, really nice guy exterior is basically a horn dog, so he's, like, horny, and so he dreamt about, you know, whatever girl is basically passing through the episode. So we liked the idea that Dean being the opposite of that we said, well, you know, if Dean's got a secret, Dean's secret is he wants a really normal family, and then we started thinking about the characters from The Kids Are All Right. And we wrote a scene that, you know, while isn't as maybe funny or surprising as Jason coming out, was more illuminating the character. So in a way, I'm actually happier that that happened. And it's kind of really heartbreaking for me. Like, it wasn't a funny scene, but it became really heartbreaking. You have this character who is telling Dean, like, let's go to, like, you know, let's have this picnic and go pick up Ben from baseball. And it's just like the most suburban minivan life ever. And, like, that's what he wants. And his embarrassment that Sam is watching it. And you get the sense he's had this dream all the time, and but he's, like, embarrassed, and no, I've never had this dream before. It just really kind of breaks your heart in the middle of sort of this fast-moving episode. And then, you know, as a second part, you know, we have this big scene where Dean confronts himself. This was, like, the big episode for us, that we're like, Dean has this really big turning point, where he basically learns a little self-esteem. I mean, if we had an arc for Dean this season, it would be, you know, Dean begins the season with such a really crappy view of his own self-worth, and that he ends the season with more self-respect, like he's really matured that way. And we spoke a lot about, well, where did this begin, and where did this come from Dean? And the answer was, it came from his dad. I mean, it's his dad that he is the reason he was the way he was. And so in the initial conception, we said, this is the episode we bring back Jeffrey Dean Morgan. And he comes into a room, and waiting there is Dad. And Dad starts, like, browbeating him. And that was our first version. But we checked, and Jeffrey was unavailable because he was filming Watchmen, and he's a definitely busy guy, and so we couldn't have him. So we're like, okay, so then what do we do? And then we realized that the way to do it was the junkyard scene from Superman 3, where it's like Dean on Dean. And if you see, like, it's Dean on Dean, but the conversation's still about Dad, which is like the original holdover. Like, it's really about his emotion from Dad, but the only way to make sense would be sort of insecure, awful, angsty Dean talking to our hero Dean, and it's sort of like the bad Dean symbolizes everything that Dean hates about himself, and he finally gets to kill him. And so it worked out, and Jensen made the scene. I mean, you know, he just so rocked it, and, like, you can so tell. I mean, if you look, he's playing different facets of the same character, and at any given moment, you know which one's which, even though they're played by the same guy. And, you know, that's no easy feat, and one of my favorite parts of the episode for sure.